Okay, so this video is meant to show you how to create and use a scale for things like models. I'm using it for the What's Inside lesson for the Hart District. Okay, so let's say I want to create a scale model of the Earth. So some things I need to know is I need to know what the actual scale of the Earth is. So for example, if you look up the average radius of the Earth, you can see that it's 6,371 kilometers. So remember, the radius is from the center of a circle to the outside. So the actual radius of the Earth is about 6,371 kilometers on average. Okay. Then when I create a scale, I can really create the scale. Since I'm creating my scale model, I can create it to whatever I want. So simply I could draw a circle, measure its actual size on my piece of paper, and then once I measure that, I should get a number. Now, if I have a really large piece of paper, like we used in class, you might get a radius of 19.5 centimeters measured out. And so if I measure this out over here, that 19.5 centimeters, let me write my centimeters better for you. This is my model. And then, of course, this is in real life. So we'll just do in real life, okay? And then this is how I create my scale. I literally will just take the radius of the Earth and set that equal to, or say that that is being represented by my drawing. And this then becomes my ratio that I can use to calculate. Sometimes it's desirable to take that same thing and we can reduce it by dividing both sides by one or the other numbers. Which number you choose to use kind of depends on your application. For purposes of this, which you'll see why I'm doing it later, I'm going to divide both sides by the 19.5 centimeters. Okay? So if I divide each by 19.5 centimeters, I will see that 19.5 divided by 19.5 is 1. And what this is going to do is it's going to end up simplifying our calculations. 6,371 divided by 19.5. And again, notice I'm not paying attention to units here. I'm just looking at my numbers. Because I'm trying to reduce my numbers. But 6,375.1 divided by 19.5 will give me 326.7. My units are still giving me kilometers. That is the same scale simplified. What that means is if I were to take and represent 1 centimeter, I'm just this is not to scale actually, but if that were to be 1 centimeter, that would represent a distance of actual Earth distance of 326.7 kilometers. If I did that 19.5 times, then I would get to the center of the Earth, and that would still represent 6,371 kilometers. That is the same scale, just simplified for use maybe later. So again, these two scales are equivalent. Which one you use depends on your application, right? So let's say then that I'm going to take and find some earthquake wave that travels to a point, let's make it about 90 degrees geocentric angle, about there. And I measure that wave to be 27.6 centimeters on the model. If I want to find out how far that's going to be in real life on the actual Earth, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a calculation. Okay? And my calculation is going to be the 27.6 centimeters on the model, and I'm going to multiply that by one of those two ratios. It doesn't, since it's the same ratio, it doesn't matter which ratio I use. In terms of rounding, it is better to use your original scale. So I can literally take that, and I'm going to put it so that my units cancel. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to put my 6,371 kilometers on top, my 19.5 centimeters on bottom. I do that because a centimeter divided by a centimeter cancels itself out, And what I end up with when I'm done as my final answer is going to be kilometers. Okay, I take 27.6 times 6371 divided by 19.5, and I get 9,017 kilometers and some decimals after that. So when I round it to 9,017 kilometers, and you'll get that answer. Now, if I'm doing this calculation many times, I don't want to have to put in my calculator this big long thing again and again and again and again. So I could do that same equation using the other scale. And again, I'm going to put my kilometers on top and my centimeters on bottom. And again, the reason I'm putting my centimeters on bottom is it allows me to cancel. And when you do that, you should get the same answer. Now, you're going to get different decimals because there's some rounding differences that are going on. When I made the 326.7, I rounded that number, so I'm rounding before I'm rounding, and that just causes some issues. But you should definitely still get that same answer. So that's how you use scales. And you can use that for any scale that you want. You can use that for any ratio that you want. To reduce things down, you can make it bigger. If I were to find that a certain distance on the Earth is there and I want to shrink it down to draw it on my model, then I would just take this ratio and I would turn it upside down so that my kilometers cancel, and it works out the same way. Okay. And finally, something for your math people out there is you can also use a proportion. This method that I use to solve these questions is just a way of solving proportions and solving like the cross multiplication and all that work in one step. So if you want to use that, I am perfectly fine with that, but you do need to show your work. Hope this helps.